The colony ship Odyssey glided silently through the dark stretch of space, its hull gleaming under the distant light of Gliese 581. Inside, the humans prepared for their first landing on a planet untouched by other civilizations. Among the crew was Dr. Elias Carter, a xenobiologist whose heart beat faster than the ship's engines at the thought of encountering alien life. He had studied alien biology for years, but nothing could compare to actually standing on a world where living beings might exist beyond imagination. The ship finally touched down on the surface. A soft hiss echoed through the corridors as the landing gear locked into place. Elias peered out of the observation window, taking in the alien world before him. The landscape was unlike anything he had seen before. Gigantic, glowing plants swayed gently in the breeze, their lights pulsating in soft waves of color. Towering cliffs floated above misty oceans, and streams of bioluminescent mist curled through the air like glowing ribbons. The planet seemed alive, not just with organisms, but with energy itself. Elias felt both awe and unease. This was a place where humans had no claim, and yet he was here, stepping into history. The mission was simple on paper: explore, catalog, and make contact if possible. But as Elias moved into the forests beyond the landing site, he discovered signs of intelligent life that made his pulse quicken. Massive footprints pressed into the soft, glowing soil, and strange patterns marked the trees as if someone or something had been communicating with them. He took notes feverishly, heart racing. This was no ordinary alien world. There were traces of a civilization, hints of something grand, waiting to be uncovered. He continued his exploration until he reached a clearing. There, lying against a cluster of crystalline rocks, was the most astonishing sight he had ever seen. A creature unlike any he had imagined, enormous in size, with scales that shimmered like polished metal, and wings folded delicately along her back. Her eyes, large and deep, shone with intelligence, yet her posture was weak, her body hunched and trembling. She was disabled, unable to move freely or protect herself. Elias instinctively froze, understanding both the danger and the honor of witnessing such a being. It was the Queen. He could feel it, her aura, the authority and power that even pain could not diminish. His training screamed caution, but curiosity and compassion won over fear. He approached slowly, speaking softly. "I come in peace. I am not your enemy." The Queen's eyes flickered toward him, sharp and wary. Elias could sense her intelligence, her life experiences, the weight of leadership. She was a creature who had commanded armies, made decisions for millions, yet now she was helpless. For a moment, silence stretched between them like a fragile bridge, tenuous and trembling. Over the next few days, Elias observed the Queen carefully, always at a distance at first. He watched her struggle to move, to eat, to maintain dignity despite her limitations. She was vulnerable in ways her species would have never allowed in public, but what fascinated Elias most was her mind. Even in weakness, she radiated strength. He began taking notes, recording her patterns, her interactions with her environment, and her instincts. Every movement was purposeful, every glance intelligent. She was more than an animal, she was a leader trapped in a body that betrayed her. Elias realized that the Queen had a problem humanity might be able to help with. Her species had a unique reproductive cycle, one that now seemed impossible for her to complete because of her disability. Without her ability to reproduce, her civilization could be at risk. The Queen had likely faced this realization, and the sadness in her eyes hinted at the knowledge of her people's potential extinction. Elias felt a heavy weight in his chest. He was a human, small and fragile compared to this majestic alien. Yet he might be the one to make a difference. The breakthrough came unexpectedly. While examining her physiology from a safe distance, Elias noticed a subtle irregularity, a biological anomaly that prevented her reproductive system from functioning. With human medical technology, it might be possible to restore it. The realization was both exhilarating and daunting. Helping her could change the course of her entire civilization. But he also knew the risk. He could fail, or worse, harm her. Despite the danger, he decided to try. He began preparing specialized equipment, combining human biotechnology with his understanding of alien biology. Every procedure had to be adapted, every formula adjusted to account for the Queen's unique physiology. It was painstaking work. Nights blurred into days as he analyzed data, ran simulations, and double-checked every step. He communicated with her through gestures, showing care without overstepping boundaries. Slowly, she seemed to understand that he did not wish to dominate her, but to help. The Queen was skeptical at first. She had faced countless beings who would exploit or harm her. But Elias's patience and respect were different. He never rushed her, never forced her hand. He offered assistance, and when she rejected it, he stepped back without resentment. Over time, a bond formed, not one of friendship in the human sense, but of mutual understanding. The Queen recognized that Elias's motives were pure. His intentions aligned with the well-being of her species. Elias, in turn, admired her intelligence, her wisdom, and her strength, despite her vulnerability. As the days passed, the Queen allowed him closer. He examined her, applied treatments to strengthen her body, and studied her biology in ways he had never thought possible. He marveled at the complexity of her system, the way her cells adapted to challenges, the resilience built into her very being. He whispered to her, encouraging her to rest, assuring her that she was not alone. Slowly, she began to trust him. Her once sharp eyes softened, and a flicker of hope returned to her gaze. Elias faced another challenge, convincing her people that he could help. A faction of her subjects had already begun observing him from a distance, wary and distrustful. They had seen humans before interlopers who had brought destruction on other worlds. The Queen's weakness only heightened their suspicion. Elias realized that his work had to be both medical and diplomatic. He could not act in isolation. The survival of the Queen, and perhaps her entire civilization, depended on bridging the gap between human ingenuity and alien tradition. He devised a careful plan. Each day, he would perform small, visible actions that demonstrated his care and skill. He repaired damage to her resting area, purified her food, and treated minor injuries with precision. Slowly, her subjects began to observe these acts of kindness. Murmurs of curiosity replaced whispers of fear. The Queen's presence commanded respect. And as she tolerated Elias's involvement, her people began to reconsider their initial judgment. The human might not be a threat. He might be an ally. One evening, as the glowing bioluminescent plants cast a soft light across the clearing, the Queen allowed Elias to sit nearby without moving away. For the first time, she seemed at peace. And Elias could feel a connection forming that went beyond simple biology or duty. He looked into her eyes and whispered, "We can do this together. You are not alone anymore." For a long moment, the Queen simply stared, her expression unreadable. Then, almost imperceptibly, she inclined her head. It was a small gesture, but it carried the weight of trust, acknowledgement, and a tentative hope. Elias felt a surge of determination. If he could help her, he could give life to a future that neither species could imagine alone. The part ended with Elias preparing for the first experimental procedure, combining human technology with alien biology. The Queen watched with cautious interest, her massive body tense but calm. Both of them knew the stakes. Success could mean survival and prosperity for her people. Failure could be catastrophic. Yet, in that moment, there was no fear, only a shared sense of purpose, a fragile bridge between two civilizations, and the first spark of what might become an extraordinary alliance. The forest around them seemed to hold its breath. The bioluminescent flora glowed brighter, as if sensing the importance of what was about to happen. Elias took a deep breath, steadying himself. This was more than science. It was hope. It was life. And in the heart of an alien world, a human was about to prove that compassion, ingenuity, and courage could bridge even the deepest divides. The night on Gliese 581 was alive with soft, glowing lights. The bioluminescent plants shimmered like stars beneath the alien sky, casting a gentle glow across the Queen's resting place. Elias Carter worked tirelessly, his hands steady and precise as he prepared the first experimental treatment. Every device, every vial, every measurement had to be exact. There was no room for error. The Queen's life and the future of her species depended on this. The Queen, Xylaria, watched him with quiet curiosity. Though her massive body lay still, her mind was sharp and alert. She had lived for centuries, seen countless challenges, and commanded her people through crises. Yet here was a human, small and fragile in comparison, attempting what no one else had been able to achieve. A part of her bristled with doubt. But another part, the part that still yearned to nurture her species, felt a spark of hope. Elias worked carefully, explaining each step to her, not expecting her to understand every word, but offering transparency. "This will help your body adjust," he said softly. "It is designed to support your strength and to prepare you for what you need to do." Xylaria tilted her head slightly, a subtle gesture of acknowledgement. The trust between them was growing, fragile as glass but no less real. Elias knew he had to maintain patience. One wrong move, one careless word, and the fragile bridge between them could collapse. Days turned into nights, and nights back into days. Elias monitored her vitals, adjusted treatments, and observed the subtle changes in her physiology. He marveled at the resilience built into her very being. Despite her disability, her body adapted to every challenge. Every small improvement was a victory. Every slight flicker of energy, a sign that progress was possible. But progress was not without obstacles. One morning, a sudden tremor shook the ground. Floating cliffs quivered above the ocean, sending cascading waves of mist into the air. Elias grabbed his equipment, steadying himself as the Queen's massive body tensed instinctively. Predators of this world, attracted by vibrations, began circling in the distance. Elias's heart pounded as he realized the danger. He had to protect her, and in doing so, he faced creatures far larger and faster than himself. The alien predators approached with curious intent, not yet aggressive, but their presence was enough to signal imminent risk. Elias's mind raced. He could not let Xylaria be harmed. Drawing on human ingenuity, he activated a series of sonic devices designed to repel the creatures without causing harm. The predators hesitated, confused by the strange frequencies. Slowly, they retreated, disappearing into the bioluminescent forest. Elias exhaled deeply, relief washing over him as Xylaria's tense muscles relaxed. Xylaria looked at him then, her eyes reflecting gratitude, surprise, and something Elias could not quite name. It was not fear. It was recognition. Recognition that humans, despite their size and fragility, could act with courage and intelligence in ways her species sometimes could not. The bond between them deepened in that moment, forged in the crucible of shared danger. As the days passed, Elias noticed subtle changes in Xylaria's physiology. Her strength was returning gradually, her energy increasing. More importantly, her reproductive system, once dormant and damaged, began to respond to the treatment. Elias documented everything meticulously, knowing that each observation was crucial for future procedures. He was no longer just a scientist. He was a lifeline, a bridge between two civilizations. Xylaria, too, began to change. The Queen, who had once viewed humans with suspicion, now watched Elias with cautious admiration. She had seen countless beings attempt to manipulate or control her. Yet this human acted with patience, respect, and care. Her species had long valued strength, resilience, and the ability to lead through force. Elias demonstrated a different kind of strength, one built on intelligence, compassion, and creativity. The other members of her species were watching too. Initially, they had been wary, even hostile. Humans were strangers, unknown, and potentially dangerous. But Elias's actions spoke louder than words. He repaired habitats damaged by storms, purified water sources, and treated minor injuries among the Queen's attendants. Slowly, suspicion gave way to cautious trust. Murmurs of admiration replaced whispers of fear. Humans, they began to see, might be allies rather than invaders. Elias also faced emotional challenges. The pressure of responsibility weighed heavily on him. One wrong move could end Xylaria's life or compromise her ability to reproduce. He slept little, ate less, and poured every ounce of focus into the work. Yet, despite exhaustion, he felt an exhilaration unlike anything he had ever known. This was not just science. This was the future of a species, resting in his hands. Xylaria, in turn, shared fragments of her knowledge. Through gestures and limited communication, she conveyed insights about her species' biology, social structure, and survival strategies. Elias listened intently, fascinated by the complexity and depth of her civilization. Each interaction reinforced his belief that humans could learn from aliens just as much as aliens could benefit from humans. The partnership between them was becoming a true collaboration. One day, as Elias adjusted a new bioengineered support module, Xylaria stirred more than usual. Her body moved with a new strength, her wings twitching with tentative energy. Elias watched with bated breath. The treatment was working, and the queen's body was responding in ways he had only hoped for. Xylaria's eyes met his, and for the first time, he thought he saw something beyond hope. She was beginning to believe that life, and new life, was possible. Yet the path forward was not without conflict. A faction of Xylaria's subjects remained wary of humans. They whispered among themselves, questioning Elias's motives, fearing the consequences of human interference. Elias understood their concerns. He had to prove, through action and not words, that humans could coexist with their traditions, that science and compassion could align with their values. He devised a plan to involve them in small, visible ways. He invited attendants to observe his treatments, explaining each step as best he could without violating cultural norms. He demonstrated care, precision, and respect. Slowly, the faction began to see that the human was not a threat. His efforts were deliberate, humble, and undeniably effective. The Queen's people began to reconsider their stance, opening their minds to possibilities they had never imagined. Amid these efforts, Elias and Xylaria formed an unusual companionship. They could not speak in the traditional sense, but understanding passed between them in gestures, in shared glances, in moments of quiet observation. Elias learned patience, humility, and the subtle art of listening. Xylaria, in turn, learned trust, curiosity, and the courage to hope once more. Their bond transcended language, species, and history. It became a partnership of minds, hearts, and purpose. Weeks passed. Xylaria's body grew stronger each day, and her reproductive system showed signs of readiness. Elias carefully prepared the next phase of treatment, a delicate procedure that could allow her to carry offspring for the first time in decades. The Queen's attendants watched silently, the air thick with anticipation. The entire clearing seemed to hold its breath, as if aware of the significance of the moment. Before beginning, Elias knelt beside Xylaria, speaking softly. "You are not alone," he said. "We can do this together. We can give life to your species, and you will thrive again. I will not fail you." Xylaria inclined her head, a silent acknowledgement. She had lived through centuries of struggle, yet she felt something she had not felt in a long time: hope. She trusted this human, and in doing so, she opened herself to a chance at renewal. The procedure began carefully, with Elias monitoring every response, adjusting equipment, and observing the Queen's reactions. He marveled at her resilience, at the way her body adapted to new stimuli, at the intelligence that guided her instincts even under stress. It was a delicate dance, a partnership in science and trust. Every adjustment, every observation, was a step closer to a miracle. As the sun rose over the glowing forests of Gliesa 581, Elias stepped back, exhausted but exhilarated. The first phase was complete. Xylaria's body had responded positively, and the possibility of new life now existed. The Queen, once weak and disabled, had a spark of vitality returning. Her eyes reflected astonishment, gratitude, and cautious hope. She had survived the impossible, with the help of a human who had dared to believe in her and her people. The part ended with a quiet moment of connection. Elias watched the queen as she stretched her wings slightly, a subtle display of regained strength. She looked at him with a gaze that spoke volumes: thankfulness, trust, and a hint of wonder. Elias understood the enormity of what had been achieved. This was more than science. This was the beginning of a future neither species could have imagined alone. Outside, the glowing forest pulsed softly, as if celebrating alongside them. For the first time in centuries, the Queen's people dared to hope, and for the first time, Elias felt the true weight of humanity's potential, not as conquerors, not as invaders, but as allies capable of inspiring life and hope across the stars. The days on Gliese 581 passed slowly. Yet each one was filled with small triumphs. Elias Carter continued his careful monitoring of Queen Xylaria. Her strength had returned remarkably, and the changes in her physiology were becoming more evident. The Queen, once weighed down by her disability, now moved with renewed purpose, though she still relied on human support for the delicate aspects of her recovery. Every step was a reminder of how far they had come and how fragile progress could still be. Xylaria's attendants began to observe Elias with respect rather than suspicion. His careful work, combined with his genuine concern for their queen, had started to shift their perception of humans. Some of the younger attendants approached him cautiously, asking questions through gestures, trying to understand the methods he used to aid Xylaria. Elias welcomed their curiosity, knowing that earning their trust was as important as the treatments themselves. The first signs of life were subtle. Elias noticed changes in Xylaria's metabolism, small hormonal shifts that indicated her body was beginning to prepare for reproduction. He meticulously recorded every detail, adjusting his bioengineered treatments to support her body further. He worked late into the glowing nights, often under the soft light of the bioluminescent plants, marveling at the alien world and the life it supported. Xylaria, though unable to speak in human language, communicated in ways that Elias was learning to understand. A tilt of her head, a flick of her wings, a glance from her glowing eyes, all were cues he had come to read with precision. She began to show subtle signs of anticipation and curiosity about what was happening within her body. For the first time in centuries, she felt a sense of possibility, a feeling that had been long buried beneath the weight of her disability. Yet the process was not without challenges. The planet itself was alive with unpredictable phenomena. One day, as Elias was checking her vitals, a sudden storm erupted. Waves of bioluminescent mist rolled through the clearing, and strong winds shook the trees. Elias secured his equipment, shielding Xylaria as best he could. She remained calm, trusting his guidance, though her body trembled with the force of the storm. It was a reminder that life on this world was not gentle, and even the most careful plans could be disrupted. After the storm passed, Elias checked her thoroughly. There were no injuries, but the experience had strengthened their bond. Xylaria realized that this human was willing to face the same dangers she had faced countless times in her life, and more importantly, he did so to protect her, not to gain power or advantage. Her respect for him deepened, and a quiet understanding grew between them, a partnership that transcended species and language. As weeks turned into months, the Queen's body responded positively to the treatments. Elias could see the changes reflected not just in her physiology, but in her demeanor. She moved with more confidence, her eyes brighter, and her posture stronger. The attendants, once cautious and skeptical, began to show admiration for Elias's dedication. The faction that had doubted him now spoke of his ingenuity and courage. Humans, it seemed, could be trusted allies in a way no one had anticipated. The next phase of the process was critical. Elias had prepared a delicate procedure designed to stimulate reproductive activity without endangering Xylaria's health. It was a combination of human biotechnology and careful observation of alien biology. Every step required precision, and Elias double-checked each instrument, each measurement, and each formula. He could feel the weight of responsibility pressing down on him, but he also felt a deep sense of purpose. This was not just science. This was life itself. Xylaria observed him with calm intensity. She had lived through countless crises, yet there was a sense of cautious anticipation in her glowing eyes. She allowed Elias to begin, trusting him fully, though her massive body remained tense. The first moments were delicate, the hum of machines blending with the gentle rustle of bioluminescent foliage. Elias's hands moved steadily, adjusting treatments, monitoring responses, and communicating through subtle gestures. The Queen's body reacted as he had hoped. Vital signs improved, and hormonal activity indicated that the process was succeeding. Elias's heart raced with both excitement and anxiety. One wrong step could undo everything, yet every observation confirmed that progress was real. Xylaria's eyes met his, and in that silent exchange, they shared a moment of mutual understanding, an acknowledgement of the courage, patience, and trust that had brought them this far. Over the following weeks, the Queen's condition improved steadily. Her body became stronger, her energy returning, and her reproductive system responding positively. Elias continued to refine treatments, guided by careful observation and the subtle feedback he received from Xylaria. The Queen's attendants grew more involved, assisting when needed and observing the process with fascination. Human knowledge, combined with alien wisdom, was producing results that neither species could have achieved alone. During this time, Elias and Xylaria faced other challenges as well. Natural hazards of the planet tested their resilience. Floating cliffs shifted unpredictably, and massive predators roamed the bioluminescent forests. On several occasions, Elias had to act quickly, using both ingenuity and courage to protect the Queen and the attendants. Each challenge strengthened their bond, reinforcing the trust that had grown between them. Humans were not just visitors on this world. They were allies capable of making a real difference. One particularly tense day, a predator approached while Elias was monitoring Xylaria's vitals. The creature, enormous and fast-moving, bore down on them with curious intent. Elias acted instinctively, activating sonic repellents and creating a barrier between the predator and the Queen. The creature hesitated, then retreated into the forest. Xylaria's massive form relaxed, and for a moment, her eyes reflected relief, gratitude, and wonder. Elias understood that moments like these were as important as any scientific breakthrough. Trust was built, not just through knowledge, but through action. Finally, the day arrived when Elias could confirm that Xylaria's body was ready for reproduction. The treatments had succeeded beyond expectations, and the Queen's physiology indicated that she could carry offspring safely. Elias prepared the final phase, ensuring that every precaution was taken. The attendants watched silently, their awe evident. Even the skeptical faction had come to understand the significance of what was happening. As Elias began the procedure, Xylaria remained calm, trusting him completely. The delicate work required precise timing and careful monitoring. Elias adjusted instruments, observed subtle changes, and responded immediately to any indication that her body needed support. The process was long and painstaking, but every step brought them closer to the miraculous possibility they had worked toward for months. Finally, after hours of careful observation and adjustment, Elias saw the first signs of success. Xylaria's body responded, and the indicators confirmed that the procedure had worked. Elias exhaled slowly, relief and exhilaration washing over him. The Queen, too, seemed to understand. Her eyes, glowing softly in the bioluminescent light, reflected astonishment and wonder. For the first time in centuries, she had a spark of hope that her species could continue through her. The attendants erupted in quiet celebration, their expressions a mixture of awe and joy. Humans had done what no one else could, and the Queen herself was witnessing the results of this unprecedented alliance. Xylaria looked at Elias, her gaze steady and full of recognition. The human had made the impossible possible. He had given her a chance to become a mother, to nurture new life, and to secure the future of her people. In the days that followed, Elias continued to monitor Xylaria, ensuring that the pregnancy remained stable. The Queen's health remained strong, and her energy continued to increase. The bond between human and alien had grown into a partnership founded on trust, respect, and shared purpose. Each day brought new discoveries, new challenges, and new moments of wonder. Xylaria's people began to celebrate the alliance between their queen and the human. The initial skepticism had faded, replaced by cautious admiration and hope. Humans were no longer strangers. They were collaborators, capable of remarkable achievements. Elias's ingenuity, compassion, and courage had changed not only the queen's life but also the perception of his entire species among her people. One evening, as the glowing light of the forest cast a gentle glow across the clearing, Xylaria allowed Elias to sit near her. There were no words, but a quiet understanding passed between them. They had faced danger, uncertainty, and doubt together. They had built trust, and they had achieved the impossible. The queen's hope for motherhood was no longer a distant dream, it was becoming reality. Elias looked at her and whispered, "You are not alone. We have done this together. Your future, and the future of your people, is bright." Xylaria inclined her head, a gesture of acknowledgement, respect, and gratitude. In that moment, the bond between them was undeniable. Humans, through determination, compassion, and ingenuity, had shown that they could inspire life and hope across the stars. The night deepened, and the forest seemed to pulse with life in quiet celebration. Elias continued his work, observing, adjusting, and supporting Xylaria. Every movement, every response, was a reminder that life, in all its forms, was resilient and wondrous. Humanity's place in the universe was not as conquerors, but as allies, capable of bridging worlds, inspiring hope, and fostering life where it seemed impossible. Xylaria, once disabled and filled with doubt, now felt a sense of renewal. Her body had responded to the human's care, and her mind was filled with cautious optimism. She had survived, and now she could give life. Her offspring would carry the legacy of her species into a future she had thought impossible. Elias had proven that humans could be more than visitors. They could be partners in survival and progress. The part ended with a quiet, powerful moment. Xylaria stretched her wings slightly, feeling the strength returning to her massive body. Elias watched her, knowing that this was only the beginning. The miracle of life was on the horizon, and the bond between human and alien had created a new path for both species. The forest glowed softly around them, a witness to the first spark of a future built on courage, ingenuity, and trust. The forest of Gliesa 581 pulsed softly under the alien night sky, the bioluminescent flora casting gentle waves of light across the clearing. Elias Carter sat quietly, monitoring Queen Xylaria's vitals. Her pregnancy had progressed steadily, a testament to the careful treatments and unwavering attention he had provided. Months of work, observation, and collaboration were now nearing the culmination of an achievement both unprecedented and miraculous. The queen's species, once doubtful of humanity, watched with anticipation, their faith in the humans strengthened by every successful step. Xylaria, now strong and radiant, moved with a grace that had not been possible months before. Her massive wings stretched across the clearing as she adjusted her position, careful not to strain her body. The attendants gathered around, their eyes filled with a mixture of awe and respect. The queen had survived her disability, embraced the assistance of a human, and now carried the future of her species within her. Elias felt a profound sense of responsibility. Every pulse of her heart, every flicker of her wings, reminded him of the stakes and the trust she had placed in him. The final phase of preparation began. Elias set up monitoring equipment, ensuring that every vital sign, every subtle movement, was observed. He worked meticulously, adjusting bioengineered supports and nutrient systems, ready for any complication that might arise. The queen, sensing his careful attention, remained calm, her massive eyes following every motion of his hands. There was no fear in her gaze, only anticipation and trust. Time moved differently in the clearing. Hours felt like minutes as Elias monitored Xylaria, anticipating the moment that would define the future of her people. Outside, the alien forest whispered with life. The floating cliffs glimmered faintly, and streams of mist wove between the luminous plants, creating a surreal, almost sacred atmosphere. Every detail seemed to align for the moment that was about to arrive, a moment that had been nurtured through months of care, patience, and collaboration. Finally, the signs became clear. The Queen's body signaled that the time had come. Elias adjusted his equipment, his hands steady despite the exhilaration that surged through him. Xylaria shifted slightly, her massive form tense but controlled. She was ready, and he was ready. The attendants gathered closer, silent but attentive, prepared to assist or intervene if necessary. The moment was both intimate and communal, a shared experience that transcended species and language. The first signs of life were subtle. A flicker of movement, a gentle change in Xylaria's vital signs. Elias's eyes widened with quiet astonishment. He monitored carefully, ensuring that the birth proceeded safely. The Queen's body adapted gracefully, responding to the support and guidance provided by the human. Each moment brought reassurance that their months of work had not been in vain. The miracle of life, so long hoped for, was unfolding before them. Xylaria's attendants watched in reverent silence, witnessing the culmination of what they had doubted, feared, and now celebrated. The human beside their queen had not only proven his skill, but had demonstrated courage, compassion, and unwavering dedication. The younger attendants, in particular, seemed inspired. Their perception of humans forever changed. They had seen firsthand the power of ingenuity and the strength of trust. Hours passed, each one bringing new challenges and subtle adjustments. Elias remained vigilant, observing every detail, anticipating every need. The Queen's massive body moved with a rhythm that was both natural and extraordinary, guided by instincts honed over centuries and supported by human technology. Elias marveled at the resilience of her species, at the precision of life itself, and at the remarkable trust that had allowed them to achieve this together. Then, finally, the moment arrived. Xylaria gave birth, her massive body trembling with effort and exertion, yet controlled and graceful. One by one, the offspring emerged, small but vibrant, each a testament to the fusion of human ingenuity and alien biology. The attendants erupted in silent celebration, their joy visible in the careful movements and gestures that had long been the language of their people. The Queen herself looked down at her children, her eyes glowing with wonder, astonishment, and an emotion Elias could not name but recognized as profound fulfillment. Elias stepped back, allowing her space, feeling a mixture of relief, awe, and pride. The birth had gone smoothly. A perfect union of science, trust, and patience. Xylaria's massive wings flexed gently as she observed her offspring, and for the first time in centuries, she smiled a smile that carried shock, amazement, and deep gratitude. Human, her gaze seemed to say, you have made me a mother. The attendants, inspired and reassured, began to move with purpose, helping care for the newborns and ensuring that both mother and children were safe and comfortable. The once skeptical faction of her people now looked upon Elias with admiration, understanding that his presence had brought life to what had once seemed impossible. Humans, they realized, could be allies, capable of extraordinary acts of compassion and ingenuity. Elias remained close but respectful, observing the Queen and her offspring. His heart swelled with a quiet joy. He had seen the impossible become reality, not through force or dominance, but through patience, understanding, and collaboration. Humanity's place in the universe, he realized, was not only as explorers but as partners capable of inspiring life, hope, and trust across worlds. As the days passed, Xylaria's strength continued to grow. She adapted to motherhood with remarkable grace, guided by instincts and supported by human care when necessary. Her offspring thrived, developing quickly within the safe environment of the clearing. Elias worked alongside the attendants, helping to ensure that every need was met, every challenge anticipated. Together, they created a community that blended human and alien knowledge, skill, and compassion. The Queen's people began to change as well. Where once there had been fear, now there was admiration. Where there had been skepticism, now there was trust. Humans had demonstrated that they could work alongside another species without dominance or exploitation. Elias's actions, his courage, and his respect for their traditions had forged a new understanding. The bond between human and alien had become a bridge connecting worlds, cultures, and species. Xylaria, once disabled and limited by her own body, now thrived as a mother and as a queen. Her eyes glowed with pride and astonishment at what had been accomplished. She moved with renewed strength, her massive wings stretching confidently as she cared for her young. Her people followed her lead, inspired by the partnership she had embraced and the life she now nurtured. Elias observed quietly, knowing that his role was both significant and temporary. He had helped initiate a miracle, provided knowledge and support, and earned the trust of an entire civilization. Yet the legacy of this moment would continue long after he returned to his ship. The offspring of Xylaria, born through the union of trust, science, and compassion, would carry forward the hope of her species and the story of humanity's ability to inspire life and cooperation across the stars. In the weeks that followed, the clearing became a hub of activity and learning. Humans and aliens worked together, sharing knowledge and observing the offspring as they developed. The Queen's children thrived under the combined guidance of their mother and the human who had made this possible. Elias marveled at their resilience, their curiosity, and their rapid growth. Every observation confirmed that the future was bright not only for Xylaria's species but for the alliance between human and alien. One evening, as the twin moons of Gliese 581 rose high above the glowing forests, Elias sat beside the Queen. Her eyes, warm and radiant, met his. There were no words needed. The gratitude, respect, and awe that passed between them were understood completely. Humanity had proven its potential not through conquest, but through ingenuity, patience, and a willingness to care for another life. Xylaria's children played nearby, their small forms darting among the glowing plants. The attendants watched, their expressions filled with quiet wonder. The Queen observed with pride and satisfaction, understanding that a new era had begun, one in which humans and her species could collaborate, learn from one another, and face the future together. Elias felt a deep sense of fulfillment. He had entered this world as an outsider, a visitor from another star, and had become part of a moment that would be remembered for generations. The Queen's smile, the glow in her eyes, and the healthy, thriving offspring were proof that trust, courage, and compassion could achieve the impossible. The final days of Part 4 were filled with celebration and quiet reflection. Humans and aliens worked side by side, strengthening the bond that had been forged through challenge, understanding, and the miracle of life. The Queen's people embraced the human presence not as intruders, but as allies, capable of inspiring hope and bridging worlds. Xylaria, once limited by disability and doubt, now thrived as a mother and a leader. Her children represented not just the continuation of her species, but the success of an extraordinary partnership. Elias's role in this miracle was acknowledged with quiet respect, admiration, and gratitude. He had done what no one else could, and in doing so, had demonstrated the best of humanity: ingenuity, courage, and the power to inspire life and hope across the stars. The forest of Gliese 581 glowed softly under the alien sky. The twin moons cast gentle light on the clearing, highlighting the Queen, her offspring, and the human who had made this possible. It was a scene of life, trust, and unity, proof that even across galaxies, species could come together, achieve the impossible, and celebrate the enduring power of hope. Elias stood quietly at the edge of the clearing, watching the Queen and her children. His heart swelled with pride and humility. Humanity had a place in the universe, not through domination, but through collaboration, understanding, and compassion. In the eyes of Xylaria, in the joy of her children, and in the admiration of her people, he saw proof that humans could inspire hope, life, and trust on worlds far beyond their own. And in that moment, beneath the glowing forests and twin moons, a human and an alien queen shared a silent acknowledgement. Together, they had created life, secured the future of a civilization, and forged a bond that would endure across generations, a true testament to the spirit of humanity its courage, and its ability to make a difference wherever it reached.